Welcome back everyone. Today I have another video, this time for Edward Newgate. Well, actually, it is a how to play video of how to play against Whitebeard, as the last video for Zoro that I did very well and people really liked it. So I wanted to give it another try into the meta decks at least. And this time we're going to do Newgate, as it's probably the best deck in the format still. And I actually do think so myself, because even though it lost, it got a lot of hits out of the ban list. It's still very powerful. It's still what it's doing. It's still doing the same thing. It's still doing. It's a 6K leader, which other leaders don't have the advantage to do so, right? Just being a 6K leader, it is a lot right now. At the moment, it is hard to deal with. And every matchup is gonna be, I think, at least a 50-50 for Whitebeard. So, but you can mitigate some of the RNG of the deck. I mean, not RNG, but like you can mitigate how to beat it a more efficient way, right? So I'm gonna show you. The first thing you need to do is understand their deck, and I have these two deck lists. They're not mine. I took them from like the winning tournaments that I've seen, either at Gen Con or the offline regional. These are very different lists. Well, not very different, but they're doing the same thing. And the main thing that changes from both lists is gonna be a searcher is gonna be a Nami and Iso on this one, so they can search. With Nami is gonna be so they can search the corners at the end of the game. That's the main advantage of playing the Nami. And out of the other one is more like an ISO focused one, well, with the Whitebeard Pirates one. So where you can actually search your one-offs like Marco and Newgate more consistently. This is the one that I played the most, basically. And I think this one, you get to see these two cards about 60 to 70% of the times in all your games, and that is very good. That is very efficient, and you're gonna be able to see them, and they're very powerful cards because of that. The same reason, that's why they got limited to one, and they're gonna help you to win the games a lot of the times. Like the games where you see them is gonna be incredible, more powerful, right? So what's the first thing that you need to understand about this deck? And it's gonna be their curve. It's gonna be how they play. It's gonna be always the same. It's gonna be turn one a searcher, ideally as Nami or an Iso, so they can turn two, they can attack with the Iso or the Nami and the leader. Turn three, they're gonna be able to play a Luffy, depending on where they're going, first or second, or a speed shield, or a 4-cost 6K, a 6K attacker body. Then they're gonna be able to play either attack or another 5-cost attacker, and then they're gonna play an ace, or they're gonna play they're gonna play an ace or more 6Ks, and they're gonna play, then the following turn they're gonna play a Newgate. If they have a lot of life still, they're gonna be able to play like an ace, tap out if they want to, and then deal more pressure to you. And then the following turn they're gonna play blockers and gonna keep up a lot of radical beams and a lot of discards, right? And there's gonna be basically for both lists there's gonna be the same. The only thing that changes is that the other list can search radical beams more consistently, and you're gonna have more counters at the end of the game. That's basically the only difference. However, so how do you mitigate that? How do you stop that from being just from winning the game, right? The first thing that you need to do is gonna be attack the leaders, the Newgate for 5K consistently. So, for example, one good example is gonna be Law, where if their basic game plan is gonna be play one drop, play one drop, play one drop, and then swap into something else, right? And they want to do that as efficient as possible, and they don't, like, if they can do it turn two, they're gonna try to do it. But instead of doing that, just attack with the leader for 6K and try to keep pressuring the opponent. Because if they're taking all the life, then they're gonna have to keep up defense, and they're not gonna be able to top out that consistently, right? They're like in their ace turn, they're gonna have to like, oh, I'm not gonna play ace, I'm rather gonna play something else instead of doing that. And that's with all the leaders, basically what it comes down to. Like, if you're able to pressure the leader and you have like a okay play on curve, but you're not able to pressure the leader, and you have a better play, and then you have an okay play, but you also can pressure the leader, is better to just pressure the leader and make the second play, like play another 5-cost attacker, and then next turn you attack for 5-5. And why is this so important? Because the way you beat this deck is gonna be to whittle down their hand to a reasonable hand size to where you're gonna have to go for game eventually, right? Because it comes down to all the games for Whitebeard is gonna be, do you have enough to out combo my last attack? Because they're always gonna be at 0 life, and you have to go for game at some point. But it is much easier to go for game when they have 5, 6 cards in hand. If they have 4, good. That's when you want to go for game. But it is much easier when they have that amount of cards in hand than it is when they have like 6, 7, and then half of them are gonna be guard points and 2K counters. It's much more difficult, right? So it is important to whittle down their hand little by little. You don't have to attack for 8 unless it is like something that you can do and you have excess energy and you can just kind of attack for 8. It is much better because you take 2 cards or they take a life, right? But attacking for 6K consistently until they have a low hand size, it is the best option to beat the deck, because eventually they're gonna have to combo a Radical Beam into a 5K, into a 6K attack, or they have to combo a 2K attack, 2K counter into a 6K attack. So that's actually how you go for game at the end of the game. Like if you have multiple 5K attackers, instead of doing all into one attack, you should divide each attack into a 6K. Because if you've been doing this consistently, even if they have 1K, they're not gonna have a bunch of 1Ks to combo out of the if they have only 6, 7 cards in hand, they're gonna have to either combo 2Ks to combo out of your 1Ks, out of your 6K attacks, or they're gonna have to combo Radical Beams or any other extra cards, and then the last attack you go all in and then see if they have enough. That's what it comes down to. It's always gonna be that case. Now, things that make and that's how you play around the blockers, because blockers are gonna be very difficult for you to beat, and that's how they're gonna program you to do it. They're gonna play a blocker and gonna do all of this, right? So if you play attacking for 5, 5, 5, 5, 5, 5, and slowly whittle down the resources, eventually you're gonna be able to tap down their blocker. If you're playing green, for example, or you're gonna be able to KO it with like a red leader effect, with a KO effect out of life, or a KO effect out of like a black deck. Like there's multiple, depending on the deck that you're playing, you're gonna be able to deal with the blockers, and then because they've been comboing out of everything, then that's another card that they lose from hand basically, and then they're gonna be easier to just go for game at that point, right? And it depends on the deck that you're playing. You have to do different options. Yellow decks, it is still a very difficult matchup, and the best thing that you can do is just try to defend early on. This is with every deck actually. Every deck should just defend early on. If they attack you for 6, defend it. Every time they attack you for 6, defend it, because later on they're gonna be attacking you for 7, and that's one hit that you're gonna have to take, or they're gonna attack you for 8, and then that's a hit that you're gonna have to take. So that's why in the deck building construction of your deck, you should always play at least, I think the right number right now to play 2Ks is gonna be between 12 to 14 cards, 2K counters, because you just need them. Against this deck, if you don't have enough 2K counters early on, you're gonna get demolished late game. So if you can force your opponent into, I'm attacking you 5K, 5K, 5K with everything, and then because I have a life total and I have a white board, they have to attack your small creatures too as well, and that's when you're winning advantages, because you're using your creatures as blockers for their huge creatures, and that's how you win basically the game. The matchup for Whitebeard, you have to force them into attacking your creatures. If they attack your leader every time, you're in a disadvantage because you have to always combo out of the leader. But if they attack your creatures, that gives you another blocker. That gives you another way to win the game, right? If they are ignoring your creatures completely, then you keep attacking for 5, 5, 5, 5, 5 until, as I'm saying, until they have enough low resources to just go for game. But a lot of this comes into the deck building portion of the deck, right? You have to have the defense to withstand the leader. So if they attack you for 6, you defend it. You need blockers yourself. Even though they play something like Marco, they play something like Unblockable Luffy and all of that, you still have to play a lot of blockers, small blockers too, and also Newgate and all of that. Because at the end of the game, if they have to spend 5 energy like as a Marco removal for your blocker, That is huge. That makes a huge difference when they're trying to go for a game. And it can save you out of nowhere if you don't have enough cards to defend their last push. That's just gonna save you. So blockers are still very, very good against this leader at the end of the game. Don't play in early on because they're just gonna get popped by Marco. They're gonna get popped by Newgate or something like that. You just have to play them on the right moment. You have to save them, and if you play them at the right moment, you're gonna give yourself enough time. If you have a wide enough board or you have a lot of like big attackers, you're gonna be able to defend, right? You're gonna be able to defend your last life totals because they're gonna have to pay 5 energy just to KO that one, or they're gonna have to play into the blocker. The blocker is gonna save you 1 life, right? Now, if you have the option between attacking the leader and attacking a battle card early on, it is better to just attack the battle card because especially if they play a 9-drop. If they play a 9-drop and they attack with the small creatures, you have to attack the small creatures because they might combo out of those creatures, and those are cards that you take out of the opponent's hand, right? And then eventually, when you're doing your last push, you have to have, again, I'm trying to reiterate this because you have to whittle down their hand to a reasonable hand size to where you can attempt to go for a game. And that's what it's going to come down to always against Whitebeard. Do they have enough to out-combo your last push? And that's what you have to try to warp all your gameplay around, just to try to get there. Just to try to have them at 2-3 cards in hand. I'm sorry, 2-3 is kind of unreasonable, but like at least 4 or 5 cards in hand is the best thing that you can do. So by the end of the game, you have the best chance that you can to just go for a game, right? They're always going to be at 0 life. So even if they play the Newgate, you don't really have to attack them to 1, because now that's the one thing that they lost. They cannot play a second Newgate after the first one. So you do get to just set up a turn to where you can either go wide enough to just attack and go for a game, and that's basically how you do it, right? So every deck is gonna play different, as I was saying. Yellow is gonna have to defend early, of course, and they have to play the big creatures, and those are the win conditions for yellow, basically. Like Karakuri to remove a little bit of the pressure, and use the small creatures to whittle down their hand size, attacking for 5, attacking for 5, attacking for 5, and then set up the defense. And ideally, you just get out of every attack early on. And then the same thing that I was saying as for the late game. And then black decks do want to keep up their removal. The removal is their biggest asset against Whitebeard, because you're especially in the late game, because they can only play 1 card per turn, and they have to keep up a lot of counters for you to just not like con them and just go for a game, right? They have to keep up a lot of counters and trying to keep themselves healthy, right? So that's the only way that you do it. Like removal for black decks is just very important. That's why Sakatsuki I played as a 4-off, because it deals with Luffy, deals with Marco, deals with Speed Deal. Because even if they want to discard cards to save the Marco, they have to discard like counter power, usually, for the most part. Unless they're playing this deck where they can also discard the Whitebeard Pirates, but that's something that gets out of your hand, right? You still kind of want them to discard counter power, because it's always going to come down to whether or not they have enough counter power to out-combo your last attack. So the more that you can get rid of cards out of their hand, the better for you, right? And that's basically what it comes down to. And the blue decks are going to have a hard time against the blockers mainly. But your own blockers are very good against Whitebeard. As I was saying, at the end of the game, the blockers that blue plays are hard to kill. And then it's going to hard for them to push for a game. And eventually, you're going to be able to whittle them down, especially if you have a 9-drop Mihawk there that is going to constantly be attacking for 9-10 and pressuring their hand as well as their board. It's going to be really, really good for you. That's your win condition, essentially. The 9-drop Mihawk plus a bunch of blockers. And, of course, defending early on to just don't have that. Actually, just like Don Flamingo, for example, has a very good matchup against this deck because of that reason. Also, then we have green decks. Green decks are going to have to play around the same thing. They're going to poke, Eventually, you're going to have a turn where you're going to be able to keep up defense, punt Gibbs on their blocker, and then the following turn, you're going all in for game. That's how usually green will win this matchup. And I don't think I have any red decks. I mean, red decks are red decks, right? Again, the same thing. You're gonna whittle down, and if you're able to remove their pressure by like Fire Fist, whatever the case might be, that's your best chance of winning the game, right? But if you're able to whittle down their hand, and eventually, that's why they're playing Fiery Doll now, because you're able to make a big attack at the end of the game and go for game. And that's going to be very important for you to be able to beat this the leader. Yeah, that's all that I have to say about this leader. That's probably the best advice that I can give about him. If you did like the profile or what I'm doing, please let me know, so I consider doing more of these ones for different decks. But yeah, that's all I have for today. Thank you all for watching, and have a good day.